What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Elijah Talks Ball. Elijah here. We're talking ball. We are overviewing the 3 Thanksgiving Day games we've got coming up Thursday on Turkey Day. Got a good, interesting game in the morning, a clunker in the middle, and then an exciting, intriguing matchup to cap off the night. Really excited for the NBC game. Going to be full of turkey, full of mashed potatoes. Hopefully we don't zonk out during it. That's what the middle game is for this year. So we're going to dive into all of it. And then at the end, we're going to do our first mock draft of this channel. We are only doing the first 10 picks. And then we're going to do one more pick. So we're going to do the first 11 technically, because the Cowboys are picking number 11. And the Cowboys, quite frankly, are a riveting franchise. So we got to add that into our mock draft. So we're going to be doing those top 11 picks and the game's overview. So stick with it to the end. Let me know what you think of the mock draft and then my picks and who you think is going to win. What game you're most excited for. What team you want me to touch on draft-wise coming up, because it's getting close to draft season, especially for teams like the Patriots, team like the Saints, Raiders, Jets, Giants. Unfortunately, we're looking to next year this early again. And then let me know in the comments, what is your favorite Thanksgiving food / thing you look forward to on the day? And hey, why not throw in what you're thankful for? I'll hit that up at the end too. Hopefully I don't forget. I'm thankful for a lot of shit. So if I don't mention it, girlfriend number 1, dogs number 2, health as well. Anyways, we're diving in. We're going to start with Bears and Lions. Obviously, we're going to go through the time slots. This is the quote-unquote morning game. I am in Mountain Standard Time, so this is a late morning game for me, as are all 1 o'clock slated games. It's very nice. You wake up, have a cup of coffee, you kind of brush off that morning haze, and you get right into football. And then the night game is over at a reasonable time to where you can kind of still lollygag throughout the night and not feel like it's completely lost. So, Bears versus Lions. Lions are favored by 10.5 points, which seems like a college line. It's very rare that you have an NFL team getting a full touchdown and a field goal favorite. But hey, that's what the Lions have been doing this year. Bears have sort of fallen off, but you could argue that even though the Bears right now are 4-6, they are a blocked field goal against the Packers and a Hail Mary against the Commanders from being 6-4 and really controlling their destiny when it comes to locking up a wild card spot. Obviously, this is a division rival, so games get weird when it's interdivisional. Thanksgiving game, everybody's going to be watching. You know that the players are going to get up for this one. Should be exciting. And I'll tell you what, Lions fans, you have to be so excited that over the past 2 years, you've gotten to wake up on Thanksgiving and see a good football team play football. I know, as a Patriots fan who just is obsessed with football, that not one of these games, at least every single year, is a wash because the Lions, are we really going to have to sit through 3 hours of it? I'm gonna, because I love it. But, you know, I'm sure as a typical fan, you'd want to see some exciting football. But that's what we're getting this year with the Lions. Dan Campbell, if he brings this team to the Super Bowl, which we're talking in hypotheticals, which maybe not even that hypothetical, which how good this team is, you got to think if he gets his team to the Super Bowl and wins after going to the NFC Championship last year and being within a nut hair of going to the Super Bowl and playing a Chiefs team that you knocked off in the first game of the season, is he already a Hall of Fame candidate? You'd have to think you have to put him up for at least nomination. So, anyways, we're getting off topic. Bears Lions, 10.5 point favorite. Crazy. Still can't wrap my head around it. But right now, the Bears fans, you were at a very, very low point a couple weeks ago when my Patriots took you guys on in Soldier Field and whooped you 19-3. Caleb Williams, 9 sacks, looked all out of sorts. That was a very low point for you guys. probably rock bottom. Let's be completely honest. And the one plus side, even though Caleb Williams has had a couple of these games so far this year where, he's got like 18 for 31 with 93 yards, you'd say, well, I mean, that's a pretty good completion percentage, but clearly not pushing the ball down the field. He has not turned the ball over pretty much at all this season. He's been very good about throwing it away. Sometimes he takes some bad sacks, but you'll live with a bad sack unless you're in field goal range. You don't want to turn the ball over, and he's done a good job at that. He's coming off, you could say, his best game of the season. I know that he had an incredible game against the Jaguars over in London. But last week against the Vikings, who we know, 9-2, very good defense, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And then the week before that against the Packers, which, we'll talk about it later, underrated defense, no turnovers, no touchdowns, but 230 yards, another 70 on the ground, so accounted for over 300 yards of offense by himself. He's kind of on the upward trend right now, which is your saving grace in this season. Obviously, you had some playoff hopes. You have a pretty good team for a number 1 overall pick, especially a player that a lot of people deemed as generational to come in here. And, CJ Stroud, we're fresh off of that last year, so the expectations are high for top draft pick at quarterback. But the saving grace for this season, you just want to make sure you've got the guy at quarterback. And after that Patriots game, I'm sure you guys were really starting to question with the play of Drake May going head-to-head against him that game. And then obviously Jaden Daniels hits that incredible Hail Mary to win the game. With how those two have played, and then Bo Nix kind of taking the lead for Offensive Rookie of the Year, you felt like, shit, did you miss the boat? But Caleb Williams has kind of settled those conversations down, and he's starting to settle in a little bit more. This team has battled back. It felt like they had some quit in them there for a little bit. Well, these past 2 games, even though they've lost, man, they've been in it to the end. We're talking about 2 minutes of game time. If they go a separate way, you guys are 6-4. So, Caleb Williams on the uptrend. Can he continue that against the Lions defense, which, don't look now, hasn't allowed a touchdown in 10 straight quarters? They lost Alex Anzalone to a broken arm. They lost Aiden Hutchinson to a broken leg. 2 of their better defenders. Obviously, Hutchinson, their best defender, one of the best edge rushers in the league. But this defense under Aaron Glenn, which should get some head coaching interviews this offseason for sure, they've really started to find their identity and play good, sound defensive football, which is what you need. Because we know this offense is fucking high-powered. This is throwing jet fuel on a bonfire every time they step out on the field. David Montgomery, who seems like he's trending towards playing with a banged-up shoulder, but Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, who feels like he gets faster every time he steps on the field, and then Jared Goff, having probably the best season of his career right now, which is saying something, where he took you to the NFC Championship last year. He's been to a Super Bowl with the Rams. He's having an incredible year. 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and I'll tell you what, if you take away that Houston game where he threw 5 picks, which obviously you can't take games away, you have to live with it, they still won the game. And I would say 4 of those picks in that game were, coin flip. Definitely one was a Hail Mary, one was a crazy tip, another one the receiver wasn't looking. But that game and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game week 2 where he threw 2 picks, that's 7 picks total right there. You're looking at all the other games, 20 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, has been incredibly efficient completion percentage-wise, almost at 3,000 yards already. He is in total command. He's been a joy to watch. And for a guy like myself who grew up on the Mannings, the Bradys, the Breezes, the Rivers, it's nice to have a throwback passer who will sit in the pocket and pick you apart. So much of what we look for nowadays in quarterbacks is, can they extend the play? Can they play hero ball? And at some point, it's at the fault of these players because it feels like a little bit of lack of development from being comfortable in the pocket and picking apart defenses gets a little bit sacrificed. So just watching a good old throwback quarterback who is deadly accurate, plays with incredible anticipation, anticipation and timing. It's very fun to watch, and really, he has a lot of teach tape when you throw him on. For young quarterbacks, say, listen, scrambling around and making plays is all fun and games, and it's exciting, and sometimes you need to do it. There's no arguing that. But what we don't talk about with Allen, with Burrow, with Herbert, Jackson, Mahomes, obviously, these guys will pick you apart from the pocket. They're deadly accurate, and that's where you succeed in the NFL. So we get to see that Thursday morning. This should be an exciting game. I obviously think the Lions are going to win because they've just been beating the shit out of every single team that they face. They've had a couple close games, but the level of physicality is never questioned. They've won some gritty games against the Vikings, against the Rams to open up the season, obviously against the Texans where they overcame, I mean, as many challenges as you could really in 60 minutes. This team reminds me of the 2021 San Francisco 49ers, just with a better QB. This was the team with when Brock Purdy freshly stepped in, and a little bit reminiscent of the 2019 Niners with Jimmy Garoppolo. Incredible run game, and just the level of physicality, no team could match that. There was that stat going around where teams that faced the Niners the week before lost every single game the following week for the whole season. Well, a similar stat is going on with the Lions right now. This team beats you up. They don't let you leave the arena without at least one kneecap gone, an ear with a chunk out of it, Mike Tyson style, a couple missing teeth, and then scratches and claw marks all up and down your body, bruises on your ribs. This team is as physical as it gets. We're talking about throwback Jared Goff. Well, this Lions team, you could place them in the early 2000s and late 90s, and they'll fit right in. And really, this should be the blueprint for NFL teams moving forward. Dominate the trenches. How many times do we see the best teams in college and in the NFL, they win the line of scrimmage? We saw the other night on Sunday night with the Eagles. They dominated the Los Angeles Rams. And the Rams have a good, young, physical defensive line. That offensive line for the Eagles, though, they beat the shit out of the Rams defensive line. So I expect the Lions to win this game. I'd be shocked if the Bears don't. If the Bears do. But you want this game to be close, kind of similar to the Patriots games. You'll take a 28-22 loss to the Rams. You'll take, a close game where you're in it till the end, but you ultimately lose so you can improve that draft position. Lions, you got to go out and win this game. Point blank, period. I expect that they will. Excited to see this game go down. Lions fans, enjoy these Thanksgiving games. You don't know how long it's going to last. It's exciting for all fans, especially you guys. You guys deserve it, especially if you stuck through it. Incredible ride that we're on right now with Detroit. Moving on to the middle game. The clunker. The turkey nap game is what we're going to call it. This is going to be the turkey nap bowl. When you fill up on apple pie, mashed potatoes, and green bean casserole, this is where you're going to sit on the couch, doze off, because we've got DeVito versus Rush. If you don't know who those guys are, I don't blame you. Not a lot of people do. Could we also see Locke versus Lance? A little LL matchup there? Probably not. That's what the fans deserve. Kind of weird situation. Tommy DeVito being the third string quarterback for the Giants. Drew Lock, obviously, they brought him in, paid him $5 million to be the backup, has shown that he's a real backup quarterback. Led a Seahawks team to a victory against the Eagles last season, Monday night, in the rain. Great game. Drew Lock, kind of defining moment of his career. Hasn't had a lot He was riding high. You could tell. Did his signature, surfs up, tuck it in the backpack celebration that he got clowned for while he was at Missouri. And then Trey Lance, obviously the 3rd overall pick for the San Francisco 49ers that flamed out pretty much instantly. Dallas took him in for a 4th round pick. He's been terrible. There's no debating that. I would have liked to see this matchup between these two, but we got DeVito and we got Rush. But the exciting part about this is Cowboys are coming off of a big-time upset against the Commanders where, they somehow put up 32 points, and somebody to watch in this game isn't even on offense or defense. KaVontae Turpin, the returner for the Cowboys, has had a couple massive plays. Incredibly exciting. Like a smaller Devin Hester when returning kicks. Can he make a big play? This game does not really matter. We all know that. But shit, it's football. We're going to watch it. And like we saw last week with the Cowboys and the Commanders, anything can happen. And even though these teams are pretty much out of the playoffs, playing with backup quarterbacks each, should still have some entertaining moments to that. I wouldn't call it an exciting storyline, but a storyline in this game is Mike McCarthy, Brian Daboll. Are these two coaches on these two respective teams going to be coaching in a different location come next year? Mike McCarthy, we all know, has not had a contract extension in his final year of his contract. And then Brian Daboll brought the Giants to the playoffs his first year, upset the Vikings on the road. They extend Daniel Jones, kind of starts the downfall of the organization. The Giants have come out and said they don't have any plans to get rid of Brian Daboll. We've seen them say that before with Odell Beckham and Saquon Barkley, and then they can him or don't decide to re-sign him. Maybe it's a little different with coaches, but you got to think that both these teams are headed for a fresh start. Now, if I'm the Giants, I stick with Daboll. He hasn't had a chance to pick his quarterback. He clearly has shown that he can lead an offense and coach an NFL team. Got him to the playoffs with about the same amount of talent, if not less. Would like to have him pick his own quarterback, which, stick around, we're going to be talking about that later during our mock draft. Would like to see him get an extra chance. But with the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy, where's this really headed? Feels like right now he's coaching for pride. And, it would sting a lot less if they could pull off this victory Thanksgiving midday. Obviously the Giants are in full tank. Cowboys, they're not far off. Although I feel like they've got a little bit more to play for. They got more talent, bigger brand. They have their quarterback. They've got some guys on that squad that, these are dudes that can play football, and they've been dealing with a lot of injuries this year, so I expect the Cowboys to win this game. The other thing I expect, is this going to be, during the Jerry Jones era, the lowest viewed Thanksgiving game for the Cowboys since he took over? Certainly feels like that. The hype has never been lower for both of these teams, and they're facing off. So, still tune in. I'm still gonna. But like I said, the Turkey Nap Bowl. Feel free to doze off. All right, now for the game that we're all the most excited for. Dolphins and the Packers at Lambeau at night, last week of November. This should be exciting. The Packers, 8-3. They've just played complimentary ball at every single level of the season. They've strung together some wins where you're playing with Malik Willis. Jordan Love has got a ripped groin. Your identity is passing the ball, but you've decided to run it. Your defense, bringing in the head coach of Boston College, that's improved. They're just a well-rounded team, and they're playing like it. Their record reflects it. Dolphins, on the other hand, were without Tua for 4.5 weeks, and that kind of set them back. They ended up getting the win at New England to put them to 2-4. But then Tua comes back, and you felt like, all right, this team is going to start going. Tyreek Hill says, start me in fantasy. Well, then they lose the next 2 games, but only due to a game-winning field goal in each one of them being a 61-yarder by Tyler Bass. So they dropped to 2-6, but now they're on a 3-game heater, and Tua's coming off his best game of the season, over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, was dicing up the New England Patriots, which I guess round of applause. The defense on the Patriots looks like poo-poo caca, but the Dolphins are rolling, and you got to say, besides that Bills game last year where they could have wrapped up the division, this is probably their biggest game under Mike McDaniels. If they lose this game, they're pretty much out of playoff contention, especially with the Bengals. They'd be the same record. You have more faith with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. They've been to a Super Bowl. There's championship caliber all up and down that team. This Dolphins team, they need a win. And the narrative is they don't win the big games. And the other narrative is they can't play in the cold weather. Well, now they've got a chance to stone this bird twice all at once, playing in Lambeau, really with their season on the line. They know the narrative. Tua's come out and he says, yeah, we acknowledge it and we're ready to change it. So you got to feel like they're going to be playing with a little bit of extra pep in their step. And I got to say, the one thing we've knocked the Dolphins for the past few years is that they don't really play with the same physicality, even though it's not like that upper echelon Detroit Lions, Philadelphia Eagles, barroom brawl kind of style. You know, we don't think of the Chiefs, the Bills as a physical team. They have a physicality to them, which is why they're in the playoffs every year. That's been missing with the Dolphins. When I watch their team over the past few weeks, that defense is flying around. Jalen Ramsey has kind of helped embody that entire defense to play with that pissed off, like, what are you going to do about it style. So this team feels a little bit different. And I feel like if they win this game, you start get a little bit more belief. Say, yeah, we can do it. You're back to 6-6 if you win this game. So you're right in the thick of it. And then you feel like, yeah, by the time they make the playoffs, if they do, they're obviously on a hot stretch. They could do some damage. And really, their time is now. Okay, Tyreek Hill's almost 31. You know, his game is predicated on speed. One of the receivers, or the type of receivers like DeAndre Hopkins and, other big-bodied receivers and tight ends and running backs like a Derrick Henry, Brandon Jacobs for a throwback. Their games weren't predicated on, I'm going to win in space and beat you in the long run. No, like, they're just going to go up, catch the ball, or they're going to run you over. Well, Tyreek Hill's whole game is based on he's going to outrun you. Doesn't matter how close you are and how much sideline or how much green grass is left, you're not going to catch him. Well, it feels like coming up, that speed might start to fall off a little bit. These contracts are going to start coming due. Teron Armstead, he's hurt every year, but he's your stalwart left tackle. He's getting older. Jalen Ramsey, he's not a spring chicken anymore, even though he's still playing great. These contracts, you got to pay Jalen Phillips. Javon Holland's a free agent at the end of this year. Tua's money's going to start kicking in. You're going to have to win this season and get in the playoffs and make a run. This is your time. Drake May, he's going to, start to give you guys some competition for the upcoming future. The Bills, they're not going anywhere. The Jets, you don't have to worry about them. They're probably going to suck forever. But really, right now, this is your future. This is your season all in one game. You need to go out, defeat this narrative, and win this game. Doesn't matter how you win it. You don't care if you win it 2-0 or 51-49 or somewhere in the middle. You just got to get this win. And I mean, I'm kind of talking myself into it right now. The thing is, with the Packers, they've just shown that they'll figure it out in any single way. Jordan Love's coming off of his first game without an interception this year. Newsflash, we're in week 12. So that's, you got to start somewhere. Every guy that's been sober or girl for 10 years started with day one. So Jordan Love, he's off the turnovers. He's not having the second half of the season that he had last year, but you still see glimpses of that. They have a ton of talent. Josh Jacobs. I mean, how many free agent running backs? Is this the greatest year for picking up a running back in free agency or via trade? I mean, we got Aaron Jones, went to the Vikings, ironically from the Packers. Joe Mixon from the Bengals to the Texans. Derrick Henry from the Titans to the Ravens. Barkley from the Giants to the Eagles, and obviously Josh Jacobs from the Raiders to the Packers. I mean, these 5 guys all moved to a different team, and they're the 5 best running backs in the league. It's kind of incredible. Josh Jacobs is having an incredible month. The past 4 weeks, I mean, he's been one of the best running backs in the league. He's coming off a 3-touchdown performance against the Niners. He adds a level of physicality where, we think of the Packers as airing it out all the way from Brett Favre through Aaron Rodgers' tenure, and now with Jordan Love and all the weapons they've got. But they play in Lambeau. They play in these cold-ass playoff games where you felt like they would be better off playing in a dome against Detroit, because then they can use that speed and really air it out. But now they can lean on that physical presence that Josh Jacobs brings. And then the defense. They've put a lot of high-end talent on that defense when it comes to Lucas Van Ness, their first-round pick. You've got Rashawn Gary out of Michigan, who, they just gave a contract extension to, one of the better edge players in the league. Jair Alexander, corner. I don't think he's playing, but either way, still on team. Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Javon Bouillard. And the best of them all, Xavier McKinney shares the league with 7 interceptions. The ball just finds him. He finds the ball. This Packers defense is pretty legit. And, the 2 things that they've really been missing throughout Aaron Rodgers' tenure and then obviously Jordan Love last year is the defense and the running game. Well, they've got both of them in spades so far this year. They're a little bit banged up on defense, but it's still there, and it should, obviously this team is probably going to make the playoffs. Even if they lose this game, you're 8-4, you're feeling good about the season. To me, I talked myself into it. I'm really up in the air in this game. I think it's going to be a great one. If this is the time to pick the Dolphins, it would be now. I like what I've seen out of them. They just beat the shit out of the Patriots. They seem like they're on a mission. Really, if field goals go a couple inches one way or the other, I mean, they're 5-0 since Tua returned. They're playing with a different speed, a different mentality. Their backs are against the wall fully. This is do or die for them. There has never been a game that has had more on the line. You got to think, if they lose this game, is Mike McDaniel even back at the end of the season? So I like the Dolphins in this one. I think it's going to be more of a dogfight than we would typically think with the Packers and the Dolphins, both being, that aerial attack style offense. They have great running games, and they both have been playing physical defense. So I'm picking the Dolphins, baby. Don't hold that against me as a Pats fan. I'm getting a little hyped up. Listen, I love football. The only team I really don't like is the Jets. So crucify me, whatever. Dolphins win in Lambeau. Big time. All right. Now we're going to move on to the mock draft. We're going to do the first 10 picks. And then obviously the Cowboys are picking 11. So fuck it. Why not? Jerry Jones, I'm sure he'll be ecstatic to hear what I have to say about his squad and who they should take. I am the expert after all. Sarcasm, humor. Hope you got it. All right. So let's go over to the mock draft simulator on PFF. Alrighty, guys. Here we are. Mock draft. The first one on this channel. Hope you're here for the inaugural 2025 mock draft. We're doing the first 10 picks, obviously, and the Cowboys. I've said it like 4 times now. You should have figured it out. Now, this draft class, we know, doesn't have a lot of QB talent, really doesn't have a lot of high-end talent. It's very strong in the running back positions and the edge positions. That's the 2 strongest. There's a couple high-end cornerback prospects and, a couple kind of tweener guard tackles that will go at the top of the draft. But this is nothing compared to last year where we had 6 quarterbacks, I mean, a couple blue chip wide receivers. The year before where we had, I mean, 3 corners that could have gone in the top 10. Will Anderson. You know, there are some dudes over the past couple years. This draft doesn't feel like it so much, and who knows? This could end up being one of the best drafts of all time. We'll just have to wait and see. Time will tell. But we got Jags on the clock right now. They're definitely the worst team in the league. A lot of talk about Travis Hunter going here. And obviously, he seems like the best overall player in the draft. But the Jags, they're committed to their quarterback. They've got running back. You're not going to take running back number 1 overall anyways. They've got good edge defenders with Josh Allen Hines and Trayvon Walker. They've got some solid linebackers. They got a decent cornerback in Tyson Campbell. I just don't know if Travis Hunter is truly going to go number 1 overall. They have some life at wide receiver. Cornerback, I feel like you could find it in the second round with a player like Takario Davis out of Arizona or Denzel Burke out of Ohio State. He's kind of having a down year, so maybe he falls, but, you know, was projected high second, late first last year, so the pedigree is still there, and time will tell. He's still got a lot of big games coming up this season with Ohio State. To me right now, the Jags should do this, and I'm gonna give you a flashback to 2017. When the Jags went to the AFC Championship and took on the New England Patriots, what was the strength of that team? It was the defense. And what was the ultimate strength of that team? It was the defensive line with Calais Campbell and Malik Jackson in the middle. And then Yannick Ngakoue, who's now on the Patriots, you know, young, still actually pretty young. He's only 29. Feels like a century ago this Jags team had that feistiness to them. I mean, they combined for almost 40 sacks just between the 3 of them. So, right here, I'm going Mason Graham. And, you know, defensive interior out of Michigan. Listen, you win games in the trenches. We just talked about it with the Eagles and the Lions. I like the Jaguars taking Mason Graham here. Just kind of help round out that defensive line. I just mentioned Trayvon Walker, who's starting to kind of figure it out. Josh Allen, who is, you know, obviously they paid him last year. He's a great edge rusher, 17 sacks last year. You bring in Mason Graham, a blue chip prospect. There's not a lot in this draft. Defensive interior. Now you have a mean front 3. You've got 2 very athletic linebackers, and that takes the pressure off of your defensive backs, Andre Cisco, Tyson Campbell. That helps the coverage not have to be as sticky for as long. So we're going Mason Graham, first overall pick in the draft. I also could see the Jags trying to trade out of this, but right now we're just doing straight down the board. And the Giants and the Raiders are 2 and 3, 2 of the biggest quarterback needy teams. Maybe one tries to leapfrog the other, but I actually think the one that the team wants is the other that the team doesn't want, if that makes sense. So, Giants at 2. We talked about Brian Daboll picking his quarterback, and he's doing it right here. We're going Cam Ward out of Miami. This guy's got all the tools. You know, he rocket arm, can evade the pocket with the best of them, make any throw on the field. I saw last week, opposite hash, threw an out route on the money to the other side of the field. In college, that's a long-ass throw. That ball did not lose trajectory at all. Brian Daboll wants a guy who's fearless, ripping it over the middle. And I think he'll coach him up to maybe not have to run around as much. He schemes his guys open. That's one of the things he's been frustrated with Daniel Jones. It's like, dude, these guys are open. Just throw the damn ball. Cam Ward, number 2 to the Giants. I think that's perfect. You know, he seems like a guy who just is going to embody the big brand. And the Giants, one of the bigger brands in the NFL and really in sports. So Cam Ward to the Giants at number 2. Shedeur Sanders is going to be the pick here to the Raiders at number 3. Where is he? Oh, are they low on Shedeur? There he is. Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders. if you told the Giants and the Raiders that, hey, you'll be picking 2 and 3 and you go Cam Ward, Shedeur, I'm sure they're ecstatic. This feels kind of like a match made in heaven, you know? Shedeur goes to Las Vegas. The hype there is huge right now. Tom Brady becoming a part owner. You just drafted Brock Bowers, who already looks like one of the best tight ends in the league. Jacoby Meyer can eat up the slot. You got a good left tackle in Colton Miller. You got a couple defensive pieces with Max Crosby and Tavon Moehrig, their safety. I think Shedeur fits in here well. You know, kind of similar to Cam Ward, maybe not as elusive. Shedeur does take some bad sacks, where, you know, it's like 3rd and 4. It'd be a 40-yard field goal. He takes like a 17-yard sack. They got to punt it. You need to coach that out of him, but I think this also sets up the potential for where maybe a year or two into his career, I don't know if they'll move on from Antonio Pierce this year, as they're still paying Gruden and they're still paying Josh McDaniels. Do you want to pay a third coach that's not even coaching for you? Probably not. But this could set it up to where Deion gets a couple more years of coaching college under his belt. And then once Shedeur has kind of gone through the maturation process, jumps into coach's son as well. I like Shedeur here to the Raiders. Pats, my Pats. America's Pats, baby. Picking here at number 4. After watching this Dolphins game, the need is offensive line. And as much as I want him to take a guy like Travis Hunter or Tedero McMillan or even Malachi Starks, because they really could use a deep safety and you know, somebody who can come up and play nickel as well, it's got to be offensive line. The problem is with Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks, the 2 highest rated tackles in this class, there's a lot of debate in whether or not their arms are long enough to play tackle, which to me seems a little bit folly, even though it seems like NFL teams ride and die by the measurement of 33-inch arms. If you can play tackle, you play tackle. And the Patriots, they need tackle, yeah, but they need guard as well. Will Campbell has the number 7 patch at LSU, which is given to the best player. He's been a 4-year starter. He's a captain. Just a high character guy, has been playing against the best of the best in the biggest games at LSU, protected for Jaden Daniels, going up against pass rushers like Dallas Turner and Will Anderson, has held his own throughout his 4 years. I like Will Campbell here to the Patriots. Like I just said, they need offensive line at any position. And, you know, they're getting Caden Wallace back, so maybe he ends up playing right tackle for you, which is where he did at Penn State. You have Mike Owenu at right guard. David Andrews, Cole Strange, he's going to go under the tutelage to kind of take over for David Andrews once he comes back at center. And really, the left side of that line, it's not ideal to keep Vidarian Lowe out there, but if you put Will Campbell at left guard and then maybe have your running back or your tight end chip the left end, that offensive line is looking a lot better. You need to protect Drake May. You can already see some bad habits forming and him trying to do a little bit too much. He is your $500 million asset, as you know, we've seen with Patrick Mahomes. This is the guy. You nailed it at quarterback. Drake is gonna be a stud. You know, give your receivers time to get open and address that later in the draft, because you can find receivers at any point. T. Higgins is going to be a free agent. There's going to be, you know, a group of guys up for trade as well. You have an extra 3rd rounder. So address the offensive line, win in the trenches. That's what we said. All right, 5, Panthers. This is the pick we've all been waiting for. Bryce Young has bought himself another year. You addressed tackle a couple years ago with Ikem Ekwonu. You've paid a couple of guards in free agency to kind of shore up that offensive line. It's actually pretty good. Corner and wide receiver are a couple needs. You did get Xavier Legette at the end of the 1st round last year. Jalen Coker is kind of come on as a undrafted or late round guy. Jatavion Sanders, pretty good weapon at tight end out of Texas, rookie as well. Cornerback, all you really have is J.C. Horn, and he's a damn good player. But if you could get a full-time corner with Travis Hunter and then throw some packages on offense at wide receiver for him, add a little bit of explosiveness, you're also getting Jonathan Brooks back. Chuba Hubbard has really taken the next step. I love Travis Hunter in those beautiful blue and black uniforms out there in Carolina. Travis Hunter to the Panthers at 5. Add a little bit of excitement and brand to one of the smaller brands in the NFL. You know, bring a big name in like Travis Hunter. He goes to the Panthers at 5. Number 6, we got the Titans. Offensive line is great. And they've got Bill Callahan, the father of Brian Callahan, who is the coach of the Titans, one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. They took J.C. Latham last year in the first round. And then Peter Skoronski the year before, he's playing guard. That offensive line is very solid. And the defense has been playing pretty damn good, so I don't feel like it's an immediate need. Easier to fill in free agency as well. To me, you got Calvin Ridley. You got Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard. You traded DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs. You need another big body receiver. Give me Ted McMillan out of Arizona, 6'5", 212 pounds. Just get the ball near him. He'll catch it. Will Levis, just like Bryce Young, has bought himself some time in Tennessee. Give him a big body guy to really maximize, see what you got. Because, hey, if you're wrong, guess what? Now you've got a young QB coming into the situation where good offensive line, good running game, couple weapons as well. So Ted McMillan to Tennessee to help Will Levis with his development. Enticing team here with the Jets, obviously. What is going to go on with the Jets? I feel like out of all teams in the draft, we don't know what the Jets are going to do the most because there's just so many question marks on who's going to coach, who's going to be the GM. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be back? Is Devontae Adams going to be back? What are they going to do with extending players like Sauce Gardner? And, obviously some of those defenders are getting a little bit older. Quincy Williams, CJ Mosley. To me, this is where they need a free safety that can play nickel in Malachi Starks. Michael Carter is going to be a free agent at the end of this year. Sauce Gardner is going to be up for a contract pretty soon, but you just signed DJ Reed, who's your other corner. But Michael Carter is your slot guy. And you bring in Malachi Starks, who can patrol the deep half of that field. High caliber guy out of Georgia, playmaker, but can also drop down Brian Branch kind of style and play that nickel slot that, let's be honest, you're probably not going to pay to re-sign Michael Carter. So give me Malachi Starks to the Jets. Kind of bring back the identity that is tough physical defense that they've had over the past couple years that's really dropped off this season. All right, moving on to the Browns. Yeah, the Browns, they got a lot of question marks. And it's been a disappointment, to say the least, and Browns fans will know that better than anybody. Big win, though, against the Steelers in that snowstorm. That was awesome to watch. Who's the best player on their team? It's Myles Garrett, obviously, one of the best players in the league. And what does he play? He plays edge, defensive end. Where did he go to college? Texas A&M. Well, you know who is in this draft that is about the same damn size, that plays the same damn position, and went to the same damn school? Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. 10 sacks last year, already has 5 on the season for this year. They got a big game coming up against Texas where he'll be going up against Kelvin Banks and Cam Williams, 2 of the top tackle prospects. So we'll really see, does his stock rise or fall as well as those Texas tackles? Big game for those guys. I like Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. Give me 2 Texas A&M behemoths on the edge. This Browns team, the defense is, it's really not far off from being back to where it was last year. I feel like a little bit of lack of, I guess you could say, motivation, but in their minds, well, what's the point? We're going to fucking score 3 points anyways. And I'm sure that's not the mentality they carry, but it's got to fall into it a little bit. bringing in dominant edge rusher to bookend Myles Garrett, and then teams aren't going to be able to have a second to throw the ball. And so Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, they're really going to tee off at the cornerback position because they are playmakers. So I like Nick Scorton. Let's be fair. You could talk about quarterback, but Watson coming off the Achilles, you still owe him a shit ton of money. You're probably going to try to throw him out there again. Maybe this injury kind of resets, recalibrates him. He gets all that emotion out. Things kind of die down a little bit. He's not the talk of the town. And worst comes to worst, just have Jameis Winston be your spot starter for next year. He's shown that, he can play bridge quarterback style football. So edge rusher out of Texas A&M, Nick Scorton, only 20 years old as well. So, I mean, you got to think that he has a long potential career in the NFL. Next up, we got not the Bengals, we got the Saints. Saints just traded away Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders, so you could say Will Johnson out of Michigan to replace that. That's not really what they've done over the past few years. They went Trevor Penning offensive line. They went Taliese Fuaga. They went Brian Bresee out of Clemson. They've really established that we're going to draft high-end talent on the defensive and offensive line, similar to the Eagles. They just haven't hit as well as the Eagles have. But Cam Jordan, he's not getting any younger. Curtis Granderson, he's not getting any younger. I think of a guy like Michael Williams, similar size to Cam Jordan and to Curtis Granderson on that defensive line. You get a freak athlete who, I mean, if you're making pass rushers in a lab, you would craft them just like this guy. Is playing with the best of them. And his freshman year was already being talked about as one of the guys that's going to go at the top of the draft. Has been banged up a little bit this year, but I really like Michael Williams to New Orleans. I think he helps bring some youth to that defensive line group that is aging pretty quickly. You pair him with Brian Bresee, and you get a nice, left or right side of the line, depending on who's coming back for the team. So where did he go? There he is, Michael Williams. And this is another one where you could talk about Trevor Penning. Maybe he hasn't played out, so you could go Kelvin Banks or Josh Simmons, where, keep beefing up that offensive line. But just with the age of that defensive line, I got to think that the Saints go defensive line here. Michael Williams out of Georgia. Number 10, we got the Bengals. And we just talked about beefing up the offensive line. Listen, the Patriots, we talked about it. Will Campbell, got to protect Drake May. He is your multi-million-dollar man at quarterback. He is your star, your future, your stud. Well, what is Joe Burrow? One of the best quarterbacks in the league. And he's doing all this while continually getting peppered. Drive in and drive out. You got to protect him. You're going to sign Jamar Chase. You got, the ability to get a running back later in the draft to replace Joe Mixon. Eric All at tight end, even though he went down, looked like he was going to be a decent option for you. You drafted Jermaine Burton, who was kind of your, throwing a ninja star at a dartboard. Hopefully you get it somewhere in the green. Andre Osivach, who's kind of come on to be a pretty decent slot guy. You got to protect Joe Burrow. And yeah, you could definitely go defense here for sure. It's lacking big time. And if you don't re-sign Trey Hendrickson, which he's up for a contract renegotiation, he still has a year left after this year, but he's going to want to get paid. So you could go defense, which that has been their weak spot this year. But Joe Burrow needs protection. You got to keep him healthy. He's your only shot at continuing to go to the playoffs and hopefully Super Bowls. So give me Kelvin Banks. Put him at left tackle. You just drafted Amarius Mims at the right side. You've put some money on the interior with Alex Kappa and Ted Karras at center and guard. Put Kelvin Banks out there at the left side. Keep Joe Burrow clean. And all right, for our final pick, we all know this one. It's easy. It's Ashton Jeanty to the Cowboys. What the fucking Cowboys needed over the past couple years, they needed a running game. You can't ask Dak to have an MVP type season like he did last year, where we know that Dak isn't one of those players that you put everything on him. When he's been at his best was when Ezekiel Elliott was in his prime. That offensive line was doing its thing, and he had Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, players like that, Brandon Cooks to throw to, Michael Gallup. Give him the pieces to succeed. Add Ashton Jeanty, a true freak at running back. You know, people say, well, he played at Boise State, you know, the talent level. Listen, I watched this guy destroy Oregon. 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. Oregon's arguably the best team with NFL talent all up and down that defense, and he worked them. This isn't a guy that's just running through, 4-lane wide highway roads to get to pay dirt. This dude is breaking multiple tackles every single run, and if you watch all of his big-time plays, he's an absolute menace. He does not go down with the first hit, so I like Ashton Jeanty to the Cowboys, and that is the first 11 picks. We're going to pick this up later in the year, and we're going to kind of go, we'll go 12 through 32 at that point, and if things change, maybe we'll restart and kind of go a little quicker through the first 11, but at least wanted to get a little bit of draft talk here on Elijah Talks Ball. So, with that being said, let's wrap this puppy up. I like what I see out of that mock draft. I'm not going to lie. I feel pretty good about it. GM, scouts, owners, if you're watching this, give me a call. My line is open. I'd love to work for you. In all seriousness, the draft is one of the more exciting things in sports. Big names coming out. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty. Should be very exciting to see where they go. Obviously, the games we talked about earlier. Can't wait to see that go down on Thanksgiving. Guys, I hope you enjoy it. And I did not forget the things I'm most thankful for. And I mentioned in the beginning of the video, first and foremost, my health. And obviously, thankful for God. You have to be. He's part of the reason I am healthy. Couldn't be more grateful for that. Outside of that, my girlfriend and my dogs, they are the best. They keep me motivated every single day. They are always keeping me entertained as well, and I hope I reciprocate that as well. Both my dogs, they are treat whores. They probably ask for 10 to 20 treats a day. We started giving them carrots and green beans because they were getting a little chunky because we're giving them peanut butter and whipped cream. They love it so much, we can't say no. We're suckers. What can you say? And then my girlfriend, she's just the shit. There's no other way to put it. There's nothing I wouldn't do for her. Not that I wouldn't do anything for her. That would be me being a bad boyfriend. So, thankful for those three. And guys, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Stay safe if you're traveling. Enjoy Thanksgiving football. And then, hope you enjoyed the mock draft. Peace out, guys.